Welcome back to Molly's story. Today I will be reading chapter 6. If you remember, chapter 5 ended with Molly escaping the basement and she gets upstairs and scares CJ's mom, Gloria, at the door. Gloria jumped out onto the porch and I followed. I wagged my tail at her and the other woman standing there. "That's not a fox," Gloria yelped. The new woman bent down and petted me. She had warm, gentle hands that smelled of soap and also of salty nuts. I licked them happily. "A fox?" she said, confused. "Of course it's not. It's a puppy." "What's it doing in my house?" Gloria gasped. The woman stood up. "I can't answer that, ma'am." "It's your house. Here's a copy of the citation along with the notice to appear." She handed Gloria some papers. "You'll need to come to court with your daughter. Understand?" "What about the dog?" I looked up at Gloria and wagged harder at the word dog. Maybe she had finally remembered about my treat. "What about it?" "Take it with you," Gloria demanded. "I can't do that, ma'am." "So you mean to tell me you're more concerned about a kid skipping a couple of classes than you are about a woman trapped on her own porch by a dog?" "That's..." The new woman sounded bewildered. "That's right, yes." "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of," Gloria cried out. "What kind of police officer are you?" "I'm a truant officer, Miss Mahoney. I think you have everything you need now." The woman turned and walked off the porch. "What do I do about the dog?" Gloria yelled after her. "Call animal control, ma'am. That's what they do." "All right, I will," Gloria muttered. She took a step sideways to where the room was leaning against the wall of the house and dropped the paper she was holding to grab it. She jabbed the bristly end at me. I jumped back and then leaped forward again, trying to catch the bristles in my teeth. This was a wonderful game. "No!" Gloria shouted, real fear in her voice. I stopped and looked up at her, tilting my head. I knew that word, no, but what was it about? Didn't she like the game? We could play something else if she wanted. In one quick movement, Gloria stepped inside and slammed the door shut. I stood for a few minutes, looking at the door, but it did not open up again. So I wandered down into the yard. It was another nice day. Maybe that rabbit would be out looking for me. I left the yard and trotted down the sidewalk, sniffing at the bushes. It would be more fun to be outside with CJ, of course, or Rocky to play and wrestle with, but still, this was better than playing Be Quiet under the stairs. The air was rich with the fresh, juicy scent of leaves and grass, and sweet with flowers. I could smell where other dogs had left their marks on bushes and signposts, and where cats had rubbed against tree trunks and fences. Squirrels had darted across the grass, and I caught a whiff of the rabbit and followed it to a hole under a porch. When a car whizzed by, it added its own metallic, oily smell. My nose never stopped moving. It was pretty clear that the rabbit wasn't going to come back out, so after I'd sniffed at its hole for a while, I kept moving. A trash can on a corner drew me close. There was food in there. It seemed like forever since CJ had brought me a bowl of crunchy things to eat. Just by sniffing, I could tell that there were scraps of bread and bits of meat in the garbage, along with other things that smelled tasty too. I stood up on my hind legs and stretched my front paws up as high on the can as they could go, but I couldn't reach anything. I dropped back down, and something crunched under my paws. It was a thin, crinkly bag, and it smelled deliciously of salt. I stuck my nose deep inside it, licking hard. There were a few thin, crispy chips at the bottom, and I gobbled them up. The salt made me thirsty even as I ate, and burned my tongue like the ham had, but I couldn't stop. Then I shook my head hard to get the bag off. It went flying across the street. I spotted a squirrel perched low on the trunk of a tree near the ground. It looked excellent to chase. I needed to get over there. But I paused at the edge of the curb and peered down at the street. So far I'd gone up steps, but never down. Up seemed easier. I put out a paw, hesitated, and then leaned further over. Suddenly, I couldn't keep my balance any longer, and both front legs, followed by my head, came down onto the street. My back legs followed a second later. I rolled over, got to my feet, and shook myself. A car came past, and I realized that I was closer to these giant, noisy, strange-smelling beasts than I had been while I was on the sidewalk. Across the street, the squirrel scrambled a foot up the trunk. It was getting away. I barked and bunched my back legs under me, ready to sprint. Then a big human hand came under my belly and scooped me up. "Hey there, little pup," a deep voice said. "That doesn't look safe." I squirmed around to get a look at whoever had picked me up. It was a big man with a rumbly voice and a fuzz of black hair on his face. In one hand, the one that wasn't holding on to me, he had a pole with a loop of shiny rope at the end, but he leaned that against a van that was parked by the curb and used his free hand to rub my ears. He smelled interesting, of other dogs and soap, and there was something fresh and minty in his mouth. But right now, I wanted that squirrel. I scrabbled with my paws to let him know to put me down. Calm down now, he said, and he opened the back door of the van. There was a strange-looking box in there, made all of metal wire, and a smell wafted out from it that I did not like. It smelled like fear, like more than one dog had been here and had been very, very afraid. With one hand, the man opened up the door of the box. Deftly, he plopped me inside. Then, as quickly as CJ would slide the boxes to trap me under the stairs, he shut the door. I was stuck. I turned in a circle, bewildered. Lots of other dogs had been in this box before me. I could tell, and most of them had been unhappy and frightened. How was I going to get that squirrel now? When would CJ let me out? Hey! A voice shouted. The man turned at the sound of footsteps getting closer. Hey! The second shout was louder, and I knew the voice. It was CJ. I put my paws up on the cage and barked with happiness. Somehow, I knew we weren't playing Be Quiet now, and my girl was here. My tail beat the air. What are you doing? CJ gasped, running up to the man who'd put me in here. She looked wide-eyed and frightened. That's my dog. Now wait, the man said. Just wait. You can't take my dog, CJ cried. I began to get worried. CJ's voice was high-pitched and anxious, like that of a puppy who can't find her mother. I could tell she needed me. Why didn't she just let me out and pick me up? We had a complaint, the man told CJ, and this dog was running around loose. I yipped to remind CJ that I was here and waiting. Complaints? Molly's just a puppy, CJ said. Who complains about a puppy? I yipped louder at hearing my name. The man shook his head. She's got no collar, no tag, nothing to say where she belongs. She belongs with me, CJ said frantically. Can't you tell? Look at her. I tried chewing on the wire, but it hurt my teeth. So I just jumped up as high as I could reach and barked and squirmed and did everything I could to tell my girl to come and get me. Listen, hun, the man said. If she's your dog, you can pick her up at the shelter any time after noon tomorrow. But wait! Wait! Tears were flowing down CJ's face now. I whimpered, wanting to kiss her sadness away. Why wouldn't she pick me up so I could take care of her? She won't understand if you take her away. She'll think I don't care about her. Please, please. I don't know how she got out, but I promise you it won't happen again. Promise, promise, please. The man took in a deep breath and let it out slowly. Well, all right. Look. Okay, but you need to get her a collar and a tag and take her to the vet. Get her vaccinated, get her a microchip, and in a few months, spay her and then get a license. It's the law. CJ gasped and blotted out her tears. I will. I really will. Please, please, can I have my dog? The man reached in and opened up the door of the metal box. I bounded out into CJ's arms. I didn't get a treat this time. Maybe I hadn't been quiet enough, but I didn't care. It was enough to be close to CJ, to look at her salty tears and wag my tail hard against her body. Thank you, CJ whispered. Thank you. All right, the man said, but keep your promise. CJ nodded frantically, still holding me tightly. The man got into the van and drove away. CJ held me tightly. Oh, Molly, she whispered. Oh, Molly, I guess we'd better go home. I could feel her heart beating hard in her chest, and it didn't quiet down as we walked back to the house. It thudded as we walked up the porch steps. CJ glanced down at the papers that were still scattered across the boards of the porch, bent to pick one up, and looked at it. She stood there for a little while, holding me close, with that paper in her hand. Then she opened the door and stepped inside. Clarity, is that you? Gloria came into the living room from the kitchen and then stopped, staring at me, staring at CJ and me, together. I wagged. I was willing to go over to Gloria and say hello, but CJ held me tightly. In fact, it was a little uncomfortable, but I was willing to put up with that to be next to my girl. What is that? Gloria demanded. This is Molly. She's my dog. It wasn't just CJ's heart beating hard now. She was shaking all over. I burrowed my head under her chin, trying to get as close to her as possible, to let her know I would always be there to look after her. No, it is not, Gloria said. Out. Take it out of here. No, CJ jerked her chin up. You cannot have a dog in my house. I'm keeping her. You can't make any demands like that just now. Do you know what trouble you're in? A truant officer came to my door. You've been missing so much school they came out here to arrest you. CJ sat me down. I sat on her feet. Did you even bother to read this? CJ asked. She waved the paper at Gloria. It doesn't say anything about arresting me, but it does say you have to come to court with me. Well, well, Gloria stood up straighter and stared down at CJ. And I will tell them you are completely out of control. And I'll tell them why. I could tell that CJ was more angry than frightened now. Her voice said it, and so did her hands, tightened into fists by her side. What do you mean? Why? why I was able to skip so much school. You go on trips all the time and leave me here without any adults. What do you think a judge in court will think about that? I don't believe this. You asked to be left alone. You hated the babysitter I found for you. I don't think a judge will care about that, CJ said firmly, and I could tell that Gloria was the one who was anxious now. I looked around nervously to see what the threat was, but all I saw was the living room, couch, fireplace, coffee table, bookshelf. It looked the same as always. Unless, CJ said in a low voice, unless you let me keep Molly. I heard my name. I looked up at my girl's face. What on earth? Gloria demanded. If you let me keep Molly, I won't tell anybody about your little trips, CJ told her. Not the judge, not the principal, not anybody. I'll say I told you I was going to school, but I was actually skipping. I'll say it wasn't your fault. It wasn't my fault, Gloria said indignantly. And Molly will help keep me safe, CJ added, when you go away again. If I have Molly, I won't mind. I'll never tell anybody, no matter how long you stay away for. A dog in my house? I can't believe this, Clarity. You know how I feel about dogs. And you know how I feel about Molly. So what do you want me to do? Gloria threw out her hands, one to each side. Fine, fine, but I'm not doing a bit of work to look after that thing. She turned around and walked back into the kitchen. CJ let out her breath in a long, shaking sigh. She sat down and pulled me onto her lap. I was happy to get on with the business of kissing her chin and letting her pet me from nose to tail. Oh, Molly, CJ whispered, I guess we won. That night, I got to cuddle in my girl's bed again. I was so excited that, of course, I had trouble sleeping. But CJ put her hand on me and petted me slowly and gently until I got drowsy. I leaned against her and felt my love flowing into her, and hers flowing into me. I woke up later because I could hear someone walking down the hall. Gloria. The door from CJ's bedroom to the hallway was open a little. Gloria pushed it open a bit more. Then she stood there, staring in at me on the bed. I wagged, just a little. I did not want to wake up my girl. Gloria didn't seem happy to see either of us. She just stared at me from the darkened hallway. That's the end of chapter 6. Hope you enjoyed it.